Oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
President Trump yesterday incorrectly stating that Ukraine started the war with Russia. The comments came after talks in Saudi Arabia that focused on ending the war, a meeting that took place without Ukraine, leading Republicans breaking rank today.
Clearly, Vladimir Putin's responsible for this war, and he had every intent to occupy all of Ukraine. His decision has resulted in the murder, rape, torture, and kidnapping of untold numbers of Ukrainians.
I absolutely would not say that Zelensky started the war. It is quite clear who started the war. It was absolutely Russia at Putin's directive.
Joining us to discuss tonight is NBC News military analyst, retired four-star Army General Barry McCaffrey. General, good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Well, let's just start with the war in Ukraine, the latest comments from the president, even being called a dictator by the president. Your reaction?
Well, look, the world turned upside down. Very difficult to process or understand such a basically horrific statement. For reasons unknown, Mr. Trump is taking the side of Putin. He is a gangster regime, a kleptocracy. The Russians, under his prompting, have committed mass murder in Syria, invaded Chechnya, Georgia, seized the Crimea, have caused hundreds of thousands of casualties to civilians and military in Ukraine. He's a brute. He kills his own opposition at home. So what Trump is thinking of is simply beyond any of us. But I think the bottom line is he has shaken NATO to its core. A peace alliance, a deterrence alliance that's kept us from going to war in Europe for 80 years. Now it's in doubt.
And as a former four-star Army general yourself, how do you think world leaders are interpreting this false narrative and what it means on the global landscape?
I think they can't make head nor tails of it. It's simply inexplicable. So we've seen the Europeans now, after J.D. Vance, the vice president's unbelievable, harmful presentation in the Munich Security Conference, they've called a series of meetings now trying to sort out where we go from here. The peace did rest firmly on NATO. Now I think you're seeing the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and the other European nations, particularly frontline nations like Poland, Finland, come together and try and sort out how they're going to deter Russia. Because when the Ukraine goes, the next up is Poland, the Baltic states, and other threats. Putin right now is conducting a low-level special operations sabotage campaign in Western Europe. They're murdering people in Western Europe. So this is a dark day for American democracy and national security.
Well, we saw these peace talks happen in Saudi Arabia, despite the fact that Ukraine was not at the table. What concerns do you have as this all plays out? Best case scenario, worst case scenario?
Well, the worst case scenario is, I think, NATO's credibility is now shattered. And so the Europeans are going to have to scramble and come up with another thought, how to protect themselves, how to deter attack by the Russians. In the short run, it looks like they're throwing Ukraine under the bus. They're not going to give up. They might negotiate and hand over 20% of the country that's already been seized. But they understand Putin is after all of the Ukraine. He's trying to reestablish the Soviet empire. So the Eastern European states in particular understand that this is a moment, a turning point in history, and not a good one.
It's been a minute since we've spoken to you, so I want to talk about what's going on in Gaza. As you know, the president has doubled down on his plans to, quote, develop Gaza. Your reaction to that and what that could mean for the United States?
It is, again, there's a level of psychobabble going on right now in our government, the most powerful nation on the face of the earth, economically, politically, diplomatically, militarily. But we've got a president who's threatening Canada with being absorbed under economic pressure as a 51st state, with seizing the canal potentially in Panama, with grabbing Greenland from a NATO country, Denmark. It's very tough to understand what he is doing. Again, it would be comical if it weren't so earth-shatteringly important. So most of the world's leaders, I think, are now intimidated and confused. They don't want to provoke Trump. They're trying to sort out, what do we do about the new reality, as if the Americans have walked away from their value system. That was the secret to NATO. It wasn't just a shared military alliance, it was a community of shared values. Where is the United States now? We're on the dark side of history.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this. The Washington Post reporting that the new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered the Pentagon to start working on plans to cut 8% of the defense budget. What would that mean for the American military?
Well, first of all, I think they have no idea what they're doing. They're scrambling around. A lot of this is just words, blather, a bunch of 20-something Musk kids walking around claiming $8 billion in savings, and it turns out it's $5 million to close down a program. They have no clue what they're doing. They're capable of damaging U.S. national security significantly. A fresh look at the DoD budget is an appropriate thing to do, but not based on 15 minutes visit by some computer nerd out of the Tesla factory. So it's sheer incompetence going on right now, firing nuclear weapon technicians, firing, research scientists and bird flu. They don't have a clue what they're doing.
We're 4 weeks into this administration. I'm wondering what keeps you up at night?
Well, I'll be blunt. I'm always a glass half full, and I absolutely believe in the American people and our resilience. And the overwhelming majority of people are good, but they've bought into a bill of goods. Trump was elected by 52% of the vote. And by the way, 80 million Americans didn't vote. So we're stuck with him for 4 more years. Congress and the judicial system and the media and the American voters had better pay attention to what's going on. I listened to a distinguished former Republican government saying, oh, this is Trump just being Trump, and he likes to have fun and provoke people. Nonsense. We are laying down the predicate for an authoritarian scheme of government. And we got to respond to this.
And how to do that? Well, we are going to talk with you in the days, weeks, months, years ahead, because again, we are just beginning with this administration. There's just so much to cover. General McCaffrey, I can't tell you how grateful I am to have you as part of our show. Thank you so much.
Good to be with you, Joy.